isa ang nais nila. Isigaw ang nadarama. Pilipinas ay magsama-sama. Pilipinas, Duterte pa rin ang tunay na nagmamahal sa ating. Laban niya ay laban natin. Pilipinas, Duterte pa rin. Inang bayang minamahal, lagi kang ipagdarasal na muli kitang makita. Pilipinas, may pag-asa pa. Pilipinas, Duterte pa rin ang tunay na nagmamahal sa atin. Laban niya ay laban natin. Pilipinas, Duterte pa rin. Pilipinas, Duterte pa rin ang tunay na nagmamahal sa atin. Laban niya ay laban natin. Pilipinas, Duterte pa rin. Pilipinas, Duterte pa rin. Mapagpalang umaga, mapagpalayang umaga po sa inyo lahat, mga kababayan kong Pilipino. Ito naman po muli ang inyong abang lingkod, si DDS TV Channel, Look TV. Salamat po sa ating mga supporters, sa ating mga viewers. Ganyan din naman ang ating mga kapwa Pilipino mula Mindanao, Visayas at Luzon. So, pagpalang araw po sa inyo lahat. So, ang ating pag-uusapan, itong sinasabing natin nasa ICC, si Tatay Digong. Confirmation. Ang kanyang ikinaso ng mga fake news. Mga fake news na mga nag-akusa kay Tatay Digong, no? Makikita na naman natin sa mga tabloid lang sila. Kumukuha ng mga ebidensya. Nakakatuwa. Lalo na pagka siguro sila'y nagdala ng mga testigo. Wala! Hindi siguro sa aking analisa hindi mapupunta sa ganung sa mga tinatawag na mga testigo nila. Naku po. Duterte pa rin ang tunay na nagmamahal sa atin. Laban niya ay laban natin. Pilipinas, Duterte pa rin. Pilipinas, Duterte pa rin ang tunay na nagmamahal sa atin. Laban niya ay laban natin. Pilipinas, Duterte pa rin. Pilipinas, Duterte pa rin. Pause tayo, pause lang. So, mga kababayan kong Pilipino, mapagpalayang ating mga kapwa Pilipino, urin manggagawa Pilipino, magsasakat mangisda. Lalo na ang ating mga buhay na baning OFWs, no? So, ating pong simulan na, mga kababayan ko, yung mga nag-akusa kay Tatay Digong, mga fake news, kumukuha lang sila sa mga news, sa mga news tabloid, sa mga Twitter, booking sila booking sila ni Attorney Kaufman, no? So, anyway, ating pong medyo mahaba-haba ito. Kailangan nating masundan lahat. Itong pakikita natin, itong fake news, yung nag-akusa kay Tatay Digong. Anyway, tingnan natin.
So that is 4 times. 3 of them under oath.
Under oath.
He admitted having a death squad in Davao, including saying.
Teka lang, ano nangyari dito? Teka lang. Ano to? Teka.
He feels safe. And that he
tingnan nga natin.
on his continued impunity. Talk to us for a few moments now, Your Honors, about how the Davao Death Squad operated.
Davao Death Squad!
Under its architect, Mr. Duterte. Victims were usually targeted in one of 2 ways. Sometimes an informant would provide information on a target, and the handler would then get clearance from Mr. Duterte through one of the co-perpetrators in the pyramid we saw earlier to kill the target. Sometimes Mr. Duterte himself would give the target's name, would say who to kill, which would be communicated by one of the co-perpetrators to a handler, and then down to the DDS member tasked with actually carrying out the killing. But whichever way it took place, Mr. Duterte's clearance, his approval was required, his permission was required for DDS members to conduct these murders. And several witnesses confirmed that, and I'll go through them in a minute. But first, Your Honor, just to react to something my friend said in the previous session. This was at I think 12:22 onwards on the transcript. He stated to the effect the prosecution couldn't even get one witness to admit they heard Rodrigo Duterte give an order to kill. Here's where it gets a little bit cute. At any time relevant to the charges or with respect to any of the incidents. So my friend didn't say the prosecution doesn't have any witness who heard Mr. Duterte give an order to kill. He's saying during this time period. I point Your Honors and my friend to PHL OTP 000-15517 at page 0002, lines 18 to 21, where a witness is asked, now did you ever hear Sarah, this is Duterte, give any instructions for killings to take place?
Wow.
Witness, personally no. Interviewer, okay. Witness, but the father, of course, many times. But this was before 2011. I would suggest that doesn't make much difference. Going back to confirmations of his clearance, if we could go to next slide. Yes. This is tab 35, Your Honors. The witness stated, quote, only one person was making the decisions. You had to ask Duterte, because if we didn't make that request, if we didn't ask for authorization, we would be chased or we would be pursued. End quote. Another witness stated, if we go to the next one, please. Tab 58, quote, we cannot conduct a clearing or killing operations without his clearance. Speaking of Mr. Duterte, we called it clearance, end quote. Finally, on the next slide, perhaps the simplest, the witness recalled, quote, a different witness recalled, quote, you cannot just kill anyone in Davao City without Duterte's approval. Otherwise, you will be charged.
Talaga?
End quote.
Paano mo nalaman?
Tab 117. In exchange for carrying out the murders was directed, the DDS members would be paid reward money.
Talaga, hindi kami
One
nakakaroon
witness stated, if we go to the next one, please, James. He recalled, this is tab 56, quote,
Ala.
every kill, the first reward money, to my recall,
Reward
it was
money.
10,000 per kill, end quote. And in addition to paying rewards for specific murders to the person who carried out the murder, Mr. Duterte also paid some of the DDS hitmen who were not police officers salaries by making them false employees of City Hall that he ran as mayor. These were so-called ghost employees. They got ID, they received salaries from the city of Davao, they were put on the books, but it was all a ruse because their only job was to kill.
No.
So it was Mr. Duterte using the city government and the apparatus to fund his death squad.
An apparatus.
He also, I'll just note quickly, provided death squad members with firearms, as I talked about earlier at the beginning of the DDS, but also with vehicles and ammunition so they could carry out their crimes. We'll go to count one now, and I'll talk just a little bit about count one. And Mr. Jeremy will talk about counts 2 and 3 tomorrow. Count one is in relation to murders in and around Davao City during the mayoral period by the DDS. It encompasses 9 incidents of murder by Mr. Duterte's death squad of 19 victims in total. Three of those 19 victims were children. I'll go to just one quick example. Incident 3 in our pre-confirmation brief, murders in Agdao Market. I'm just going to go through one of them. Your Honors, this is at paragraphs 91 to 92 of our pre-confirmation brief and page 36 of the notebook we passed around this morning. Incident 3 is about the murders, or what happened in Incident 3 is the murder of 3 people in that market on or about 4 December 2013. Before carrying out the murders, 3 DDS members who we'll see received instructions from their handler. There was a job to be done. And the victims in this crime were 3 alleged thieves. So we have 3 hitmen and 3 victims. The informant helped the DDS hitmen to locate the targets, the victims, who were at a shop in Agdao Market that day. And when the hitmen reached the shop, each one shot and killed one of the targets and murdered them in broad daylight. After the killing, the hitmen reported back to their handler up the pyramid chain that the job was done. And their handler, in this case, then informed Sonny Buenaventura, who at that time was one of Mr. Duterte's most trusted men. The reward for this incident, for these 3 murders, was 90,000 pesos total. That's at our brief at para 91. What's interesting about this incident is that a few weeks later, after the murders, a video of Mr. Duterte watching the crime on CCTV was posted to YouTube. And I'll show that video, Your Honors, in a minute. But in the video, you'll see Mr. Duterte standing at the CCTV room looking at a bank of television screens. The video then zooms in on the CCTV footage of the crime. And you see 3 DDS members walking up the street in the market. You see them turn to the right, pull out their guns, their pistols, shoot the 3 victims who are off the screen, and then they walk and jog away, and they don't look very worried. And the video then zooms out, and you see different people running to see what has happened because they've heard the shots. Okay, can we play that, please?
Anong nangyari? Oh, pinakikita. Talaga naman, ano? Mga ebidensya. No, sige. Pakita nyo. Ano raw?
And you have to wonder if what my friend said is true, that Mr. Duterte is an honest mayor trying to solve crime. You have to wonder, Mr. Duterte portrayed himself as tough on crime, law and order enforcer. Triple murder was filmed. Mayor Duterte watched it himself. You can see the perpetrators shooting, committing the crime. Yet, Mr. Duterte, the former prosecutor, Mr. Tough on Crime, could not get this triple murder committed in a market in broad daylight with multiple eyewitnesses solved? Of course not, because it was his murder. And that brings me to the next point, which is clear. DDS members did not fear punishment because they were committed at Mr. Duterte's orders or direction. He authorized this Incident 3 killing and the others in...
Ano yan? Si Chappie, ano? Chappie. Ano nangyari kay Chappie? Teka.
Why, of course,
Ayan.
the death squad members were not being arrested, worried about being arrested for the murders they carried out. And if we go to the next slide, James, one of them says very simply, quote, when asked if he's worried about being prosecuted for the killings he committed, his answer was, quote, no. As long as it has been cleared, I wouldn't worry. End quote. Tab 30. And it's highly understandable that the DDS members were not worried about being prosecuted for the murders they committed, because Mayor Duterte took pride in these killings. He was interviewed as mayor in late 2015, and a reporter put a question to him, asked him about a human rights group report which suggested that he had killed 700 people in Davao. I'll play the video and we'll see his response. You'll also see, just before we play that, Mr. Christopher Bongo is in this video to Mr. Duterte's right.
Bongo daw.
Look at the question, look at Mr. Duterte's answer.
700 na, pinatay ko. Nagulang ako sila sa punta. Mga 1,700.
No denial. Instead, he takes credit for 1,000 more killings. That isn't bluster. That's not hyperbole. That's the truth. I'll move on now, Your Honor's coming to the end, and talk a little bit about his road to the presidency. He saw that the political success of his Davao model, as my friend said, he kept getting reelected. It was working. He saw that the political success of the Davao model of killing alleged criminals could be leveraged for more power, higher office. As I said in the beginning, that's exactly what he did. During his presidential campaign, He campaigned on a promise, a pledge to implement the common plan to kill alleged criminals.
Shout out Clark, no? Oh, iyak kami ngayon. Iyak kami. Iyak kami. Bukas kayo iyak.
These are just some of the speeches he made. It's a compilation of
Ben. Iyak, iyak.
This is a tab 12.
Susunod kayo iyak.
4 videos. It's about 4 minutes, but it gives an idea. These are not all the statements, but it gives an idea of the man who ran for president in 2016. If we can play that, Jane.
3 to 6 months sabi ko. I
Ayan.
will eradicate corruption, criminality, and drugs. If I become the president, I will order the military and the police to hunt down the drug lords, the big ones, and kill them. Tell me what my credentials to the presidency?
Shout out po Ma'am Felicia de Galicia. Yung mga nagsasabi na iyak tayo ngayon, bukas sila iyak. Shout out Ma'am Felicia de Galicia.
So that maybe I said, kung dating ako dun sa Pasig, I can promise you, not heaven, but I will promise you a comfortable life. Corruption has to stop. Criminality has to stop. Either makuha ko ang gusto ko, or you perish. Magpratahan na lang tayo. Anong ibig sabihin niya? Patayan niya. I promise you, hindi naman bili-bili man tao. Sabi ko, I would stop drugs and crime, criminality in 3 to 6 months. That's too ambitious. My God, subukan ninyo ako.
Yan.
That's what I told the Davao criminals before. Sabi pinapatawag ko ba? Do you want to go out of the city? Gusto mong pumunta ng Manila, maganda ang buhay doon. Doon ka na lang, gusto mo? Hindi na nawala. Di patay. Ano usapan natin yan? Bakit para sa akin? Did I do it for my own? For my own benefit? To enrich myself? What does the life of a criminal got to do with your pocket? Nandito lang I want to peaceful city. Umalis kayo. Pag hindi, papatayin ko talaga kayo. Ano pinatay ko? Huwag na tayo magkagudaw ka.
Yan ang ebidensya nyo. Walang jack yung ebidensya nyo. Sablay kayo.
Give me time. Give me time kasi nag-limit talaga ako. At sa kung gusto naman sa hindi, talagang gagawin ko. Piwilit ako.
Shout out directly. Shout out po.
Sa military at police. Pati police.
Sending love. No.
Criminals. Drug-related offenses. I will tell the police and the military and kill them.
Yan na ang ebidensya nyo.
Alam naman ito.
Walang yan. Sablay kayo dyan.
Alam mo ito,
Oh.
ako ang na-presidente, I would warn you, I do not covet the position. Pag na-presidente ako, magtago na kayo. Yung 1,000 na, it would reach 50,000.
Yan ang ebidensya nyo. Sablay kayo dyan. Sablay kayo dyan.
Kasi manalo ako dahil nga using breakdown sa law and order. I do not want to commit a crime. But if by chance,
Directly,
God would place me there.
and BV. Shout out po.
1,000 na ito maging 100,000. Diyan mo makita tataba yung isda dyan sa Manila Bay.
Sending love. Thank you so much.
Diyan ko itap. I do not want
Kala ko, parang mapakulay na. Joke. Sending love.
If I become the president, I will order the military and
3 to 6 months.
oops, sorry. So, if I become the president, I will order the military and the police to hunt down the drug lords, the big ones, and kill them. Tell me, what is my credentials to the presidency? Then I'll say, Davao is Exhibit A. Either I get what
Yun
I
ang
want,
exhibit A nyo? Ay!
let's be straightforward.
Anak
What does
ng
that mean?
siyokoy kayo talaga,
That
no?
means killings. You should get out. If not, I will really kill you. So I killed them. Let's not play hide and seek.
Nakakatuwa kayo, no? Mga abogado ba kayo?
I will tell the police and the military, go out and kill them, period. I will
Sharon,
really kill
shout out
you.
po, Sharon.
I do not want to kill people, so do not elect me as president. That's the man before you for this hearing, even if he's not in court today. He repeatedly promised to kill people, his own people, if elected president. He said it, he did it, that's who he is. He won the election, became president on 30 June 2016, and did exactly as he said he would. He murdered thousands of people by taking the Davao model nationwide. I'm finished, Your Honor, and perhaps I would suggest that
Ano to? Ano nangyari dito? Ano nangyari dito? Akala ko ba naman live to? Oh? Ano nangyari sa inyo? Teka lang ha. Teka lang ha. Teka lang. Hindi ko nakuha agad yung ano eh.
I would like to thank all the parties and participants, as well as our interpreters, the registry, and the technical staff, as well as all those who
Teka lang, ha?
contributed towards the
Walang
success of this
yan, no?
hearing. The hearing is adjourned, and see you tomorrow.
Ano to?
Submissions on the merits. Mr. Prosecutor, please proceed. You have 1 hour today.
Wow! 1 hour.
thank you very much, Madam President, Your Honors,
Sige, diretsuin mo.
and good afternoon to you and to the
Nasaan testigo
my colleagues
mo?
on the other side and to everyone.
Puro video pala.
Your Honors,
Ibang klase talaga tong ano eh.
the evidence shows, despite what we heard for the last 30 minutes before the break, that Mr. Duterte murdered thousands of his own people, Filipino men, women, and children. He was at the center of a common plan, which included the murder of alleged criminals throughout the Philippines. The plan was first implemented in Mr. Duterte's hometown of Davao. While mayor, he promised to clean up the city by killing alleged criminals. He kept that promise, and he murdered hundreds through so-called liquidation squads, death squads. These liquidation squads became notoriously known colloquially as the Davao Death Squad, or DDS. After years, 2 decades,
Shout out Shaldi. Shaldi ano, DIY KKB. Oh, DIY ano ba?
that this political
DIY.
strategy could be leveraged for higher office and for more power, the presidency. And that is exactly what he did. During his campaign to be president, Mr. Duterte expressly promised many times that he would kill criminals if elected. He claimed that Davao was Exhibit A in why he should be elected. And he promised, he pledged, that if he won, he would expand the killings nationwide. He won, and that is what he did. And as you will hear tomorrow from Mr. Jeremy and Miss Croft, the murders skyrocketed in the months immediately after Mr. Duterte became president in June 2016. And that was no coincidence. That was him fulfilling his campaign pledge. As president, he murdered thousands using many of the same co-perpetrators and methods from his time as mayor of Davao. So he moved the method and some of the co-perpetrators to Manila in order to expand the crimes. The victims in this case ranged from powerful individuals to predominantly the poorest citizens of the Philippines. Now, why were the poor selected and victimized? Well, it was often because they were the most vulnerable, and they didn't have the families and the power to make police reports, and they were the most afraid. Mr. Duterte boasted about the killings that resulted in thousands of deaths at his order.
Tausod-sud talaga.
At any time,
Mamaya,
has he shown any
makikita
remorse?
niya,
He promised also, he will hear, to take responsibility, personal responsibility
mamaya,
for the killings, if need be.
si Tony Kaufman, mamaya ka
That time
lang.
has come. We are confident that if your honors confirm the charges in this case, that we will prevail and Mr. Duterte will be convicted at trial. We talk a little bit about what my friend, one of the things he said during his 30 minutes. In our presentation today, you will hear Mr. Duterte, in his own words, calling for killings, bragging about killings, and as I said, vowing to take responsibility for those killings if necessary. And the defense, I have in my outline, may claim, but they already have,
Ate
the
Hayes,
defense
shout out
claim
po.
that this is hyperbole,
Ma'am,
bluster, exaggeration,
hindi ko babasa yung ano.
blunt or direct strongman political speech, which had brought him political success in Davao and then nationwide. And the defense
Maximum space and comfort with our
Ano
stylish
yan?
couch, sofa, and bed.
Ang dami ba't ganito kayo?
Quickly transform into a sofa bed where you can lie down.
Hindi ako makapag-vlog ng maayos
It becomes a bed equivalent to
Ito
a
lang,
semi-double size. Super comfortable.
Teka,
Sofa by Deck.
sorry tuloy natin. Si kakalokohan nila.
we don't shy away from that. That's
Tuloy natin yung kalokohan nila dyan sa ICC.
The defense will say, and again they already have, that we've cherry-picked the statements we show you, but we have not. We acknowledge these many references to self-defense in Mr. Duterte's speeches. But the evidence which is in our pre-confirmation brief, and some of which will lead today, overwhelmingly shows that those references to self-defense and following the law and to due process are nothing but nonsense. Keep in mind, as mayor, he created a death squad
Death Squad! Member ako dyan!
who creates, leads,
Joke lang, wala na.
arms, and
Wala na
funds
silang
a
magawang
death squad
paraan,
is not interested in due process or following the law. Those empty utterances were simply
Following
Mr.
the law.
Duterte, who's chosen not to be here today. Those were simply him acting as the former prosecutor, trying to build in some semblance of a defense, preparing for the day, should it ever
Ate
come,
Hayes, shout out
as it
po.
now has,
Di ko
that he
manin,
would be held to account.
Mix.
It was to
Say
give the
mix.
lawyers something to say.
Say
But look
mix.
at it over
Ano?
here.
Say
Why I
mix.
said don't shoot, except
Log,
in
log ba?
self-defense.
Log. Sorry
The reality
Hi,
is that
hi.
Mr. Duterte's message was clear. And it was understood by the perpetrators, and it was followed. That message was, commit murder at my direction, and I will protect you, I will pay you, I will promote you.
I'll promote you.
And that's what happened. And I'll say
Wala
this,
sila magawa.
for purposes of this confirmation hearing, disregard every speech ever made by Mr. Duterte.
Ano ba kayo? Mga abogado ba kayo?
There is still
Kalangkot
ample
talaga
evidence
kayo.
of substantial grounds based on the other evidence, which we
Evidence, ano,
have put on
video?
notes of evidence. And the evidence as a whole, when you weigh it together, will show
Oh, sige nga.
that what my friend said is not correct.
Sige nga.
That Mr. Duterte intended for his subordinates to follow the law,
Panood.
that he was interested,
Panood.
and that his speeches were simply bluster.
Talaga.
I'll talk briefly now about the charges
Oh.
in the case.
Nasaan na?
As the deputy prosecutor stated, we have 49 incidents, totaling 76 murder victims and 2 victims of attempted murder. And of course, those are expanded upon in our pretrial brief, or PCB.
Saan?
Now, as my friends said in the LRV, while there are countless victims who've experienced harm as a result of Mr. Duterte's crimes,
Yeah.
we have focused the charges in this case to these 49 incidents
Wow,
and
49.
these number of victims in order to ensure that this trial can be expeditious and that it can be efficient and that it won't go on for years and years. So these charged murders are emblematic. They're representative of Mr. Duterte's larger killing campaign.
Killing, nasaan? Nasaan killing?
I was going to talk about the legal standard for today, but Your Honors explained it extremely clearly in the beginning of the introduction, so I won't go into it, other than to say, of course, the standard we have to meet is substantial grounds, which I am confident we will. The only thing I would add is that this stage of the proceedings, in addition to not being a mini trial or a trial before a trial, it's also not the time for the chamber to in-depth determine the credibility of witnesses. That can only properly be addressed at trial by the trial chamber when the witnesses are called to testify before the judges and their evidence is properly tested. And there I would point Your Honors to the Said confirmation decision, 9 December 2021, and paragraph 39. I'll move on now. We can go to the next slide, James. I'll talk a little bit about Mr. Duterte's background. He was born on the 28th of March, 1945. And he prides himself, or portrays himself at least, as someone who understands the problems of the poor. But as my friend stated, he actually comes from a very privileged family. His father was a lawyer, a politician, even a provincial governor. And as a young man, Mr. Duterte became a lawyer. He went to law school, practiced as a prosecutor in Davao City for almost a decade, from 1977 to 1986, and you find that in our pre-confirmation brief at paragraph 2. While he was a prosecutor, he taught criminal law and procedure to police officers in Davao City. And despite this privileged background, despite his deep familiarity with the law and criminal law, Mr. Duterte embraced criminality from the beginning of his career.
Talaga?
It's just one example.
Inggit
As
kayo,
a prosecutor,
inggit
the evidence
tikit.
shows he taught police officers to plant evidence. And we can go to the next slide, please, James. I won't read the whole slide out, Your Honors. This is tab 57, PHL OTP 000
OTP o truck ba?
R01. But this witness with direct knowledge stated, quote, he's like planting of evidence. It is necessary, and he is Duterte. He called it necessary evil. So they said that there are times in police work that you have to do the necessary evil for the sake of the common good, end quote. And I think you'll see, Your Honors, that that's a theme that runs through Mr. Duterte's career. He's willing to do whatever he considers the necessary evil, either for the common good or for his political advancement, or both.
Marami na tulungan sa Tatay Digong. Kayo, wala.
Confirmed years later,
Inggit kayo, inggit-pikit kayo.
when being questioned under oath during a hearing in the Philippines House of Representatives, that planting evidence was his strategy as mayor. Now, at first he denied it in this hearing, but then he admitted to planting evidence in this
Planting
exchange.
evidence,
We go to the
talaga?
next slide. This is
Baka planting
tab
testigo kayo.
46.1, Your Honors. Chairperson.
Planting
So you
testigo.
really did plant evidence. Mr. Duterte's answer? Well,
Ang dami ng gastusin.
Ang dami nang gastusin eh. Ang dami na talaga. Alam niyo mga kababayan ko, ano, maraming gastusin ginawa ni Tatay Digong. Imaginein mo. Kami po ay, nung panahon nun, ay tinatawag na 30,000 pesos and below ang sweldo, wala ng tax, no? Pero kayo, ano ginagawa nyo? Hanap kayo ng hanap ng taxes sa mga mamayang Pilipino. Teka. Nangyari dito. Ito. Teka, ano nangyari dito? Akala nyo, nakalusot na kayo kay ano? Nakalusot na kayo?
was criminal.
Kayo ang kriminal.
So not only did Mr. Duterte clearly intend his criminality,
Wow!
he
Criminality!
bragged about it
Gustong-gusto
right up until his arrest.
na mapanagot ang mga kriminal.
He bragged about it. He thrives on a tough guy persona or image.
Inggit
He's
kayo!
trying to create for himself. My friend talked about him riding motorcycles. Well, one example I'll show you is from 2007 now, if we can play that, James. And I should say this
Sige,
is
play nyo! Nasaan ang play nyo? Saan nyo nakuha yan?
Elite, never losing an election. So, riding Harley Davidson, shooting a semi-automatic pistol. This is the image he's trying to create from the beginning. He likes to pose with weapons. If we can go to the next one, James. This is tab 80. And here in this photo, which was published in a newspaper,
Photos, no?
you can see Mr. Duterte holding an assault rifle. And I'll just note that we also see in this photo, to the immediate left of the photo, Ronald Bato.
Teka lang ate, matubato. So, mga kababayan ko, ano? Ako nga, pwede rin ako, yung mga automatic armalite, mga ganun. Kaya ako magpa-picture. Tapos, criminal na? Ganun lang, criminal na. Si Tatay Digong, nagpa-picture lang ng mga armas, ganun na. Mamatay tao na, grabe talaga itong mga taong to, no? Ewan ko, saan ba humuhugot sila ng...
Mayrosh is waiting for us on the other side.
Teka. Eto na naman tayo eh. Pinost ko lang naman eh. Teka. Wala no. Ibang klase ng mga taong to. Pakikita pa naman yung kanyang Teka. Ibang klase to. Ayan, pakikita yung ano. Pakikita, oh. Pakikita raw.
Ako hinahamon ng mga
Oo. Nasaan na ba yan?
That's
Mahaba.
him 3 days before coming to The Hague. Of course, after arriving in the Hague, his lawyers very soon began arguing that Mr. Duterte was not fit enough for these proceedings.
Ang dami niyo
He wasn't
kasi.
physically or mentally fit enough to be put on trial or for his charges to be confirmed.
Talaga?
But fortunately,
Yun lang?
a panel of 3 medical experts that Your
Anak
Honor
na joke.
found unanimously
Ngayon kung magpapatuo sa inyo, magpapauto yung ICC, ay wala.
point is that despite what the
Ibang
defense may
klase
say,
yung mga ebidensya, no?
or to the press,
Wow!
Mr. Duterte
It's
is
true.
perfectly fine.
No.
He's able to attend the proceedings today. There is nothing stopping him except that he doesn't want to be here. He chose not to face the court, not to face the victims. There is no reason for him not to be here other than his request and choice. I'll move on now briefly to his time as mayor in Davao, Your Honors. If we can quickly bring up the map, James. There we see Davao in the south. We can zoom in. I don't think there's any dispute where Davao is. He was first elected mayor of Davao City in 1988
May mapa siya, no?
and served as mayor for more than 20 years, between 88 and 2016. And as the deputy prosecutor has noted, jurisdiction for this case is 1st November 2011 to 16 March 2019. We're limited to that jurisdiction. So that is the period we will concentrate on today, although of course before and after may be relevant. As mayor of Davao, Mr. Duterte promised a crackdown on crime.
So,
To quote, crackdown, end quote, on crime and drugs, Mr. Duterte created liquidation squads, death squads, made up both of Davao City police officers as well as non-police officers who were essentially hired hitmen, hired killers. And this system of his became known as the Davao model. The Davao model was murder, not being tough on crime legally, as my friend said.
hindi nyo alam kasi.
And you have to think, it's a little strange
Wala kasi
cracking
kayong
down on
alam.
crime by committing the crime of murder. Of course, Mr. Duterte did not commit these crimes alone. We discussed the co-perpetrators, including during the mayoral period, in our pre-confirmation brief, Your Honors. And you'll find that at paragraphs 8 to 23. I'll talk about just a few of them now, just to introduce them. First, if we go to this, thank you. Ronald Bato de la Rosa,
Walang nga, puro picture.
who was a chief of
Yan ang
the
ebidensya nyo, picture. Man.
CPO,
Very good kayo.
2012 to 2013.
Gusto nyo talagang ano. Pauwiin agad si tatay, di ko ano. Wala yung mga picture nyo, ano.
Another police chief in Davao during the period. Next, Christopher,
Siguro kakampi to, ano. Itong
who was Mr. Duterte,
prosecutor ni ano, dito sa ICC, ano.
from 1998 to 2006.
Ebidensya, picture.
Davao period and then continued later.
Kakatuwa talaga, ano. Siguro kakampi ni Tatay Digong to. Para mapauwi agad ng Pilipinas, si Tatay, no.
Regional director,
Nagpapanggap lang siguro to. Kakampi talaga ng Duterte to.
and finally,
Oh,
Italiano Aguirre,
gire.
was a lawyer
Oh.
for Mr. Duterte and for some of the DDS members during the mayoral period. And Ms. Croft will discuss these co-perpetrators and their roles in more depth in her presentation, which will be tomorrow.
Sino mastermind? Si ano ba? Si
Talk now
Bangag?
a little bit about the
Si
structure
Bangag ba? Sino ba
of
yung
the
Bangag?
Davao Death Squad or DDS. As we say in our
Ano,
brief,
paggaling talaga.
it's a pyramidal structure. If we go, James, to the next one.
Tingin ko dito, kakampi to ni Tatay Digong. Talagang binabagsak yung mga ebidensya eh.
It became known as the Davao Death Squad, and it had a hierarchical pyramid-like structure. At the very top has Mayor Rodrigo Duterte, and as mayor, he had, of course, de jure control over the Davao police.
Bestie, it's
Ano ang best yan? Nangyari naman.
This is perfect for festival vibe and
Ay,
real
talaga, oo.
Switch to this
Ano ba yung mamaya na kasi.
Anti-fingerprint.
Teka lang ha.
Won't turn
Teka
yellow.
lang, nahanapan niya ng fingerprint.
But fits your budget.
Teka lang,
Look
teka
at
lang.
that detail. Plus, buy three.
Makakampi to niya ni Tatay Digong. Malamang to.
Yes.
Oo.
And also
Tingin ko dito, kakampi ni Tatay Digong to. Nilalaglag yung mga ebidensya eh.
So a typical chain of command.
Oo.
The instructions go down, the reports go up.
Oo. Galing oh.
The handlers
Thank you thank you sa iyo.
the different death squads or DDS members.
Dides!
And at the very bottom, the lowest rung, the DDS members who were
Kakampi ni Tatay Digong to, itong prosecutor na to.
who carried out
Wow.
physically the murders. And they were made up
Sa aking analisa,
police officers
kakampi to ni Tatay Digong. Gusto mapauwi agad ng Pilipinas.
as well as non-police persons who were hired. These members at the bottom were often recruited because they had a debt or owed something to Mr. Duterte or the police, and they could therefore be controlled. And these members at the very bottom were at risk themselves.
Picture
Because if
pa,
they
no?
did not follow orders, or if they tried to leave the DDS, they could be tortured.
Talaga, sablay talaga ni anong prosecutor, no? Para na sa ganun, madismiss agad, no?
In this case.
Ala.
Talk now, just for a few moments, about the founding
Tanong ko lang, prosecutor, baka talagang kakampi ka ni Tatay Digong.
of the death squads. One witness described his initiation into the DDS. He described it happening in 1988 at a dinner meeting in a hotel in Davao City. And this was a huge deal for this witness. I mean, it was almost unimaginable being invited to a dinner in a hotel in the center of Davao where he was going to meet the mayor. Mr. Duterte was
Hinahina mo
present,
ebidensya.
and he
Mr.
openly
Prosecutor.
told the new members of the death
Mukhang
squad he was
kakampi ka nga ni
forming
Tatay Digong,
their job was to kill criminals.
Analisa ko lang,
Next
ano?
slide, James. This is tab
Lahat
50
na sinasabi mo kasi ebidensya, wala, laglag eh.
Witness recalls of the meeting. Quote, he, Duterte, told us that your job here in the city would be to kill the drug
Kill?
pushers, the snatchers, and the holduppers. That's what our job is going to be,
Yan.
end quote. And in private, with his paid killers, Mr. Duterte didn't say anything about self-defense. He then provided these death squad members with guns and ammunition. And again, in a festive way, a basket was passed around filled with handguns, and the new members could pull one out, like getting a prize. So they would each have a weapon for their new job. It was a celebratory event for Mr. Duterte. The witness explained Mr. Duterte was happy at this dinner meeting.
Louis, shout out po.
And he even sprayed a bottle of champagne to celebrate.
Shout
That's
out
a
po,
pair of
Louis.
5 or PCB. One witness recalls, we can go to the next slide, James, thank you. Recalled of this event, quote, he, Duterte again, said it was like a baptismal,
Shout
like a
out pa,
launching.
Louis ba? Louis?
He was very happy at that moment, end quote. That's tab 51. Mr. Duterte was very happy at the birth of the
Louis,
DDS.
ano to?
It's important to note, Your Honors, Mr. Duterte has freely admitted his role in the Davao death squad. He doesn't deny it. Well, now he does. He did not before he came here. During an interview with a local news station in 2015, he admitted that he is the Davao death squad. And if we could play that now, please, James.
So how do you react to that?
They say I'm the death squad. True. That's true. You know, Your Honors, in some ways, this case is not exactly complicated. That's not the only time Mr. Duterte admitted his role with the death squad. He repeated
Shout out po,
under
Mama
that he had a
Maria
death squad
Lisley. Shout out po,
at the
Ma'am
Blue
Maria
Ribbon Committee in the
Lisley.
Philippine Senate in 2024, about 10 years after the clip we just saw.
Hi po, hi. Maria Lisley.
However, in this exchange, he denied that the death squad included police officers in some type of apparent effort to protect them. This is tab 41.1, if you could bring it up, please. Mr. Duterte, under oath, quote, I can make the confession now if you want.
May mga viewers, pwedeng i-click nyo doon sa, sa kanan, yung may corona. Yan. Try nyo
The death squad, but not the police.
yung corona dyan sa kanan.
These were gangsters.
Ganda yan.
He says it again. In the same hearing, he confirms this admission. We go to the next one, please. Tab 41.1. The senator asks, quote, so what the former president dropped earlier, that they have a death squad, was a bombshell.
Bombshell!
Whatever name it goes by, whether police or non-police. Because it looks like what we are investigating now
Nagdududa na ako sa prosecutor na to.
on drugs.
Talagang gusto niya ma-dismiss agad eh.
Extrajudicial
Wala.
killings. For the record,
Pagloy.
Mr. Chair. End quote. Mr. Duterte's response, quote, you are correct, ma'am. You are absolutely right. End quote. It's not on a slide, but he also stated bluntly,
Ano to? Ang pinalalabas niya ng ano?
Same tab, 41.1, same hearing. Quote, my death squad, ma'am, is of course, it is organized. That's all I can say, end quote. So that is 4 times,
Ano,
3 of them
ano
under
to? Saan nagagaling to? Sa Twitter?
he admitted having a
sa
death
Twitter.
squad in Davao.
Sa Twitter kumukuha, no?
It's the death squad. That's not hyperbole. That's not bluster. That's him telling the truth. And he feels safe. And that he can bank on his continued impunity.
Tingin ko rito, opinion ko.
Talk to us for a few
Kakampi
moments
ni
now,
Tatay
Rose,
Digong to,
about
kung
how
ano
the
to,
Davao
para
death
ma-dismiss
squad
agad yung
operated.
yung kaso ni Tatay Digong sa ICC. Thank you.
Mr. Duterte. Victims were usually targeted in one of 2 ways. Sometimes an informant would provide
ebidensya niya,
information on the target,
picture, sa Twitter.
and the handler would then get clearance from Mr. Duterte through one of the co-perpetrators in the pyramid we saw earlier
Nilalaglag niya yung
to kill the
ano,
target.
Tingin ko rito,
Sometimes
kakampi talaga to ni Tatay Digong.
would give the target's name, would say who to kill, which would be communicated by one of the co-perpetrators to a handler, and then down to the DDS member tasked with actually carrying out the killing.
No, kami, DDS kami. Duterte Die Hard. Ano yan? Ano yan? Ano na naman to? Ano na naman to? Nasisira yung vlog ko eh. Teka. Tuloy.
To conduct these murders. Several witnesses confirmed that, and I'll go through them in a minute.
Tingin ko rito
First, Your
talaga.
Honor, just to react to something
Gusto
my
ma-dismiss agad ang
friend said,
kaso, no?
in the previous session. This was at
For picture. Picture!
12:22 onwards on the transcript.
Picture!
He stated to the effect the prosecution couldn't even get one witness to admit they heard Rodrigo Duterte give an order to kill. Here's where it gets a little bit cute.
Nasa
At any
ebidensya.
time relevant to the charges or with respect to any of the incidents. So my friend didn't say the prosecution doesn't have any witness who heard Mr. Duterte give an order to kill. He's saying during this time period. I point your honors and my friend to PHL OT 000 15517 at page 0002, lines 18 to 21. Dear Sarah, this is Sarah Duterte, give any instructions for killings to take place. Witness, personally no. Interviewer, okay. Witness, but the father, of course, many times. But this was before 2011.
Mamaya,
I would suggest that doesn't make much
Mamaya.
difference.
si Atty. Kaufman.
Going back to the confirmations of his
Pahiya
clearance,
to, mamaya.
if we could go to next slide.
Next slide na naman.
Yes. This is tab 35, Your Honors. Witness stated, quote, only one person was making the decisions. You had to ask Duterte. Because if we didn't make that request, if we didn't ask for authorization, we would be chased or we would be pursued. End quote.
Ano to?
Another witness stated, if we go to the next one, please.
Sige nga.
Tab 58. Quote, we cannot conduct a clearing or killing operations without his clearance. Speaking of Mr. Duterte, we called it clearance. End quote. Finally, on the next slide, perhaps
Pwede naman gumawa yan. Mag-communicate kayo.
witness recalled, quote,
Communicate kayo sa text.
recalled, quote, you cannot just kill anyone in
Ito na ba?
Davao City without Duterte's approval. Otherwise, you will be charged. End quote. It's tab 117. In exchange for carrying out the murders as directed, the DDS
Samantala, mamaya pagkano, samantalang si Atty. Kaufman, merong conversation, talagang big, vocal mismo. Ito, text to alam joke alam na namin yan, kaya naman namin gawin yan yung mga text yan. Oh pare, dalawang cellphone mo, pare, ganun. Tapos sa kabila, tapos, ebidensya na, no? Kaya na naman gawin na, kahit multiple na, na cellphone. Oh, teka, ano ba sasabihin ko? Tapos dito naman sa kabilang cellphone, landya ka na. Ebidensya na to. Talaga, Ako, nagdududa ako dito, Nagdududa ako, Nag-analyze ako, Mukhang gustong i-dismiss agad ang kaso ni Tatay Digon sa ICC. Mukhang kakampi to talaga. Mukhang kakampi. Alam naman niya yan So, tuloy natin.
their only job
Your job.
to kill. So it was Mr. Duterte using the city government and the apparatus to fund his death squad. He also, I'll just note quickly, provided death squad members with firearms, as I talked about earlier at the beginning of the DDS, but also with vehicles and ammunition so they could carry out their crimes.
Puro text. Kung halimbawa, sarili ko lang, text-mate ko yun dito, sa kaliwang kanang kamay ko na cellphone, yung kabaliwa, ako rin sasagot.
Mr. Jeremy will talk about counts 2 and 3 tomorrow. Count 1 is in relation to murders in and
Pinagtatawanan
around
siguro
Davao City
itong mga kapwa
during the
niya,
mayoral period by the
Gino,
DDS.
Kompanyero,
9 incidents of murder
gusto mo ma-dismiss agad?
by Mr.
Gusto mo mapauwi agad si Tatay Digong? Mukhang
19 victims in total.
Mukhang
Those 19 victims.
kakampi mo si Tatay Digong ah.
We'll go to just one
Puro capture.
quick example.
Um,
Incident 3 in our pre-confirmation brief, murders in Agdao Market. I'm just going to go through one of them. Your Honors, this is at paragraphs 91 to 92 of our pre-confirmation brief and page 36 of the notebook we passed around.
Kakampi ka ni Tatay Digong, malamang.
Incident 3 is about the murders, or what happened in Incident 3 is the murder of 3 people in that market on or about 4 December 2013.
Galing oh.
Before carrying out the murders, 3 DDS members who
Ako sa aking analisa dyan, ano, kakampi ni Tatay Digong ito si prosecutor na
there was
ito.
a job to be done.
At
And the victims,
pinahihina ang ebidensya. Wala naman kasi sila ebidensya.
so we have 3 and 3 victims. The informant helped the DDS hitmen to locate the targets.
Hakido.
Who were at a shop
Shout
in
out po
Agdao
sa'yo.
Market that day. And when the hitmen reached the shop,
Ito, Hakido ko.
each one
Hakido ko,
shot and
shout
killed
out.
one of the targets and murdered
Ano
them
ba sabi niya?
in broad daylight. After the killing, the hitmen reported back to their handler of the pyramid chain that the job was done. And their handler, in this case, then informed Sonny Buenaventura, who at that time was one of Mr. Duterte's most trusted men. The reward for this incident, for these 3 murders, was 90,000 pesos
Finish na to.
total. That's at our
Finish.
brief of Para 91.
Finish na talaga.
What's interesting about this incident is that a few weeks later, after the murders, a video of Mr. Duterte
Oh, video.
watching the
Video na.
crime
Video.
on CCTV was posted to YouTube. And I'll show that video, Your Honors, in a
Okay,
minute.
go.
In the video, you'll see Mr. Duterte standing at the CCTV room,
Go.
TV room, looking at a
CCTV
bank
now.
of television screens.
Okay.
The video then zooms in on the CCTV
Uh-huh.
footage of the crime, and you see 3 DDS members walking up the street
Kanina
in the
pa ako
market.
nagdududa dito sa
You see
prosecutor
them
na
turn
to
to
eh.
the right,
Kakampi ni
pull out
Tatay
their
Digong to.
guns, their pistols, shoot the 3 victims
Nilalaglag niya yung ebidensya
off
nila eh.
the screen, and then they walk and jog away, and they don't look very worried. And the video then zooms out, and you see different people running to see what has happened because they've heard the shots. Okay, can we play that, please?
Yan na, yan. Oh. 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 Ebidensya na yun. Oh. Oh.
In a world
Ganon.
where
Wala.
faith is
Finish
only
na.
capital, meet the
Finish
program
na.
that's here to
Ano tong
revolutionize
video
the veteran
to?
experience.
Grabe.
Introduce
Antindi. Antindi. Nagduda na ako, prosecutor, na mukhang kakampi mo nga si Tatay Digong. Alay, Jack. Ano ba yung pinag-uusapan niyo dyan? Ako, nasaan na ba yan? Nasaan na yan? Nasaan na? Tuloy. Tuloy. Ano? Sige, sige. Pakita natin. Wala rin.
And you have to wonder if what my friend said is true, that Mr. Duterte is an honest mayor trying to solve crime. You have to wonder, Mr. Duterte portrayed himself as tough on crime,
Oh.
law and order enforcer. This triple murder was filmed. Mayor Duterte watched it himself. You can see the perpetrators committing the crime. Yet, Mr. Duterte, the former prosecutor,
Wala,
Mr. Tough on Crime,
Thank
not
you.
this triple murder
Mr.
Committed
Prosecutor.
in a market
Galing.
in broad
Ang
daylight
galing pag
with
ano.
multiple eyewitnesses solved
Para may dismiss agad, no?
because it was his murder.
Hmm.
And that brings me to the next point,
Yeah.
which is clear. DDS members did not fear punishment because they were committed at Mr. Duterte's orders or direction. He authorized this incident 3 killing and the others in Davao City. That's at our PCB, our brief, 71 to 72. And that's why, of course, the death squad members were not being
Death
arrested,
squad.
worried about being arrested for the murders they carried out. And if we go to the next slide, James, one of them says very simply, quote, when asked if he's worried about being prosecuted for the killings he committed, his answer was, quote, no. As long as it has been cleared, I wouldn't worry. End quote. Tab 30. And it's highly understandable that the DDS members were not worried about being prosecuted for the murders they committed, because Mayor Duterte took pride in these killings. He was interviewed as mayor in late 2015, and a reporter put a question to him, asked him about a human rights group report which suggested that he had killed 700 people in Davao. I'll play the video and we'll see his response. You'll also see, just before we play that, Mr. Christopher Bongo is in this video to Mr. Duterte's right. Look at the question, look at Mr. Duterte's answer.
700 na, pinatay ko. Nagulang ako sila sa kwenta. Mga 1,700.
No denial. Instead, he takes credit for 1,000 more killings.
Naintindihan niya sa
That isn't bluster. That's not hyperbole.
Ano?
That's the truth.
Eh, ikaw rin sasabi, that's the truth.
I'll move on now. Your Honor's coming to the end. And talk a little bit about his road to the presidency. He saw that the political success of his Davao model, as my friend said, he kept getting reelected. It was working. He saw that the political success of the Davao model of killing alleged criminals could be leveraged for more power, higher office.
Baka algo balay.
In the beginning, that's exactly
Diri.
what he did.
Sa Mindanao.
During his presidential campaign,
Dito sa Mindanao.
a pledge to implement the common plan to kill alleged criminals nationwide if elected. I'm going to play a video now, Your Honors, that are just some of the speeches he made. It's a compilation of this is a tab 12 of 4 videos. It's about 4 minutes, but it gives an idea. These are not all the statements, but it gives an idea of the man who ran for president in 2016. If we can play that, James.
3 to 6 months sabi ko, I will eradicate corruption, criminality, and drugs.
Ano problema ron? Radical.
If I become the president, I will order the military and the police to hunt down the drug lords, the big ones, and kill them. Tell me what my credentials to the presidency? Then I'd say, Davao is Exhibit A. Ngayon, dito sa Davao, hindi sabihin ito malinis itong bayan na to. It's not perfect. So that maybe I said, kung dating ako dun sa Pasig, I can promise you, not heaven, but I will promise you a comfortable life. Corruption has to stop. Criminality has to stop. Either makuha ko ang gusto ko, or you perish. Magparagahan na lang tayo. Anong ibig sabihin niyan? Patayan yan.
Doon!
Hindi naman bilib-bilib ang tao. Sabi ko ay mag-stop drugs and crime, criminality in 3 to 6 months. My Manila, that's too ambitious. My God, subukan ninyo ako. That's what I told the Davao criminals before. Hindi na sabi ko lang patawag ko ba? Do you want to go out of the city? Gusto mong pumunta ng Manila? Maganda ang buhay doon. Doon ka lang, gusto mo? Hindi na nawala. Hindi patay. Ano usap-usapan na doon yan? Bakit para sa akin? Did I do it for my own? For my own benefit? To enrich myself? What has the life of a criminal got to do with your pocket? Nabi ko lang, I want to peaceful city. Umalis kayo. Pag hindi, papatayin ko talaga.
Correct. May masama ba doon?
Huwag na tayo magdalaga pa. Papangatran ka na lang. Well, ako, I have this.
Nilaglag nga nila yung ebidensya nila para ma-dismiss na agad.
Give me time. Give me time kasi mag-read talaga.
Nagaling. Kakampi nga ito ni Tatay Digong.
I-read ako. Sabi ko sa military police, only criminals, drug-related offenses. I will tell the police and the military, go off and kill them.
Kakampi nga ni Tatay Digong ito. Gustong ma-dismiss agad.
Pag ako ang na-presidente, I do not covet the position. Pag na-presidente ako, magtago na kayo. Yung 1,000 na, it would reach 50,000. I would kill all you, making the life of the Filipino miserable. Patayin ko talaga kayo. Kasi manalo ako dahil nga yung breakdown sa law and order. I do not want to commit a crime. But if by chance, perchance, God would place me there, magbantay kayo, kasi itong 1,000 na ito maging 100,000. Diyan mo makita tataba yung isda dyan sa Manila Bay. Diyan ko itapon. I do not want to be president. I do not want to kill people. So do not elect me as president.
Puro hyperbolic nga yan.
For your indoor
Talaga naman, Alam,
catch plays
sa,
to save your floors.
saan ka ba naman mga kababayan ko ng halimbawa ay may hinuhuli kang kriminal, no? Kriminal, luhuli mo, no? Tapos ngayon, hawak mo na yung batuta, no? Oh, pahuli ka na, kriminal! Ano yun? Ano yun eh? Kung halimbawa meron siyang armas na mas powerful doon sa batuta ng pulis, no? Wala na. Grabe talaga itong mga ito, no? So anyway, tuloy natin. Oh.
If not, I will really kill you.
Oh.
So I killed them.
Oh.
Let's not play hide and seek anymore. Let's just be frank.
Talaga pinahihina mo ebidensya mo, ha?
Police and the military go out and kill them. Period. I will really kill you.
I will really kill
I do not want
you.
to kill people. So do not elect me as president. That's the man before you for this hearing, even if he's not in court today. He repeatedly promised to kill people, his own people, if elected president. He said it. He did it.
Yan ang gusto ng Pilipino. Si Tatay Digong.
He won the election, became president
Talaga.
30 June 2016, and did exactly as he said he would. He murdered thousands of people by taking the Davao model nationwide.
Gusto ng taong bayan yan. Tatay Digong.
And perhaps I would suggest that the next presentation
Para maubos na ang mga drogista.
if you don't mind, because we only have 5 minutes.
Yung mga lumalaban.
Judge Motok, thank you, Mr. Prosecutor.
Yan na, si prosecutor na. Prosecutor! Asa na si prosecutor?
Yes, present presentation and your suggestion. We have now come to the end of this first day of hearings. I would like to thank all the parties and participants, as well as our interpreters, the registry, and the technical staff, as well as all those who contributed towards the success of this hearing. The hearing is adjourned, and we will resume tomorrow according to our schedule. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Teka, di pa nagsasalita siya si...
Submissions on the merits. Mr. Prosecutor, please proceed. You have 1 hour today.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Your Honors, my name is Julian Nichols, and
Yung Nicole.
to you and to
Teka lang, teka lang.
my colleagues on the other
Mga
side
babayan ko.
in the courtroom.
Ito na mga ating ano.
We're here today because
sapaw sila ni Atty. Kaufman. Ano. Anyway, ito. Pakinggan natin si Atty. Kaufman.
Si Papa ko ay
Papa Picolino Show. Teka lang.
napapansin ko ang sakit
Ito siya.
I thank Mr. Tuyan
Ayan.
for his intervention, but I feel that I
Atty. Kaufman.
remind him that this is a court of law which decides matters on the basis of evidence, not on the basis of political demagoguery,
Correct.
and not on the basis of a desire to effect regime change despite the democratic will.
Atty. Kaufman.
And certainly not on the basis of statements made by Ombudsman
Pakinggan.
Crispin,
Pakinggan niyo maigi.
who professed that domestic justice would be denied, according to Mr. Butuyan, because of the lack of forensic reports and police reports. Now, I don't know which case Mr. Butuyan's metaphorical ship sailed into, but he clearly hasn't read the evidence. Whilst he was speaking, we examined the evidence, and out of that evidence, we found at least 35 reports substantiating 49 of the incidents which are mentioned in the document containing the charges. Your Honours, Rodrigo Duterte was and will always remain a unique phenomenon. His style of statesmanship was novel and unpalatable to many. His expletives and hyperbole grated, while his honesty and wild popularity irritated. He spoke openly, from the heart, sincerely and truthfully. And what a contrast between him and his successor in the Malacanang. For President Rudy, his word was his word, and the people knew it. For President Bong Bong,
No!
his word is for the wind.
Ayun!
People will not forget it.
Grabe!
Let me remind everyone of the letter which President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. signed, it's on the screen, in which he gave a cast-iron undertaking that his government, and I quote, will not assist the ICC in any
Sinungaling nga
way,
eh.
shape,
Sinungaling.
or form. Well, as we know, he failed to keep that promise. Rodrigo Duterte
Sinungaling
was
nga eh.
unconstitutional and unceremoniously hauled off to The Hague.
Sinungaling ang
And when
BBM.
called upon to defend his master's actions and the said letter at a Senate committee hearing, the then Secretary for Justice, once again Mr. Jesus
Hindi na natin si
Crispin
BBM,
Ramula,
ano?
persisted with the same dishonest theme. And I quote his words, "We did not assist the ICC. We continue with the very tenor of the letter, that we did not assist the ICC and we did not have any contact with them." So he said, but with a document emanating from the prosecution team opposite and disclosed to us a mere week ago, not as information material to the preparation of our defense, but as exonerating evidence, we can now substantiate what we have suspected for a long time. The document comprises a transcript of a telephone call covertly recorded between 4 parties who cannot be mentioned in public, and one of these parties was boasting about how he was acting as the silent partner of President
Wala yan, nag-uusap pala sila, no? Teka.
to funnel witnesses to this court, while all the time ensuring that he could get
Nag-uusap na capture ni meron silang ebidensya. 4 daw nag-uusap. Talaga nga pinag-iisipan to si Tatay Tico. 4 daw. Tapos conversation, Hindi yung mga text message lang. Talagang phone call. Phone call, pinag-iisipan talaga si Tatay Digong. Pakanggaling talaga nitong si Attorney Copan. Pakinggan natin, apat daw ang nagbablock. Siraan si Tatay Digong. Apat. Meron silang conversation na recorded. Ayun.
BBM, plausible deniability. So it is indeed the defense case that President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.
Nako, nanulit.
set out to neutralize Rodrigo Duterte and his legacy. Yes, Mr. Deputy Prosecutor.
Yari si
I used the
Ferdinand Marcos
legendary
Jr.
word neutralize. So central and so essential to your case theory, because you know just as well as me that I'm using the term metaphorically. And now I turn to the substance of the charge.
Teka lang. Maganda yun Yung apat na nagkukwentuhan. Conversation yun sa phone call. Apat! Nako! Na-capture. Meron siya ebidensya ayon sa kanya, At talagang pinagdidiinan nila na talagang basagin o durugin si Duterte. Bukong kayo ni Attorney Kopman.
The geopolitical context.
Ayan.
The scourge of illegal narcotics is not unique to the Philippines. As we all know, it afflicts Latin America, where I can name 3 countries where the death rate at the hands of vigilantes and law enforcement agents per capita population is higher than it ever was under Duterte. And as you should know, and you will hear from the prosecution, at any rate, the Philippines as a country is uniquely positioned to act as a transit hub for the trafficking of narcotics emanating from the cartels in China. And with or without Duterte, so we argue, the death rate would have kept on rising. Indeed, as we will prove with statistics and reports, the death rate flowing from narcotics-related crime actually increased after Rodrigo Duterte left.
Oh, ba't wala na naman? Wala nang signal dun Teka lang mga kababayan. Ayan pala! Ano na? May pinalabas ba?
The council rose up. Famous, and where I ask you, has the International Criminal Court been that Rodrigo did anything? The totally lawful Duterte campaign against illegal drugs and their suppliers took place when his administration was
Wala.
Meron ka bang mahal sa buhay?
Meron akong mahal sa buhay. Marami akong mahal sa buhay. Ano ba naman?
Na silang hayaang magdusa pa.
No, wag kayo magdusa.
when his administration was
Nawawala talaga ang Nawawala talaga. Teka.
we distributed policies all with the aim of alleviating poverty. Legislative reform in 2017 to reduce personal income taxes for workers. Social protection expansion known as the 4 Ps, designed to provide regular cash transfers to needy and multi-child families. Universal health care. Need I say more? The Magna Carta of the poor. Setting out the right to adequate food, decent shelter, education, and the highest standard of health. The fact that the majority of those who died as a result of related crime were living in the most deprived areas is something which is endemic to every afflicted society.
So, sinasabi ni Attorney Kopman, ito ba sinasabihan yung anti-poor? Naku po, grabe, sinabihang anti-poor si Tatay Digong. Yung prosecutor, Samantalang sinabi nga ni Attorney Kopman, ang daming mga proyekto para sa mahihirap, siningil yung mga hindi nagbabayad ng mga tax. Tapos yung mga proyekto ni Tatay Digong, anti-poor? Hindi pwede, hindi ganoon. Etong 30,000 pesos and below, wala na kaming tax. Ano 'yon? Hindi naghahanap si Tatay Digong ng bagong tax, ewan ko dito sa mga ito. Talagang mahina kasi kayo sa taong bayan. Kaya hindi kayo magtatagumpay. Kung kayo magiging presidente, kung kayo magiging vice presidente, nako, Lalo na pagka-kongresista senador, nako. Lalo na subukan nyo ang mga Duterte diehard supporter, no? Pag hindi kayo ay inimpeach nyo si Inday, nako, yari talaga. Magkakaroon na kami ng protest vote. Noong nakaraan, midterm election ang dami na wala sa inyo Eto lang, yung iba talaga, medyo, yung iba may mga nakalusot siguro mga 20 o 30, no? Pero ang napatalsik namin diyan at hindi na nanalo, mahigit 100 piraso. 100 piraso yung mga kongresista. Subukan nyo ang mga DDS. Subukan nyo, sigurado, yung ambisyon nyo, pagiging isang politiko, wala na yan. Mawawala na yan. Tuloy. Kaya magdesisyon kayo,
Can anyone seriously accuse this man?
Wala. Yan.
Wala. This is the man who at the age of 5 arrived in Davao to live in a modest shack where rain leaked through the roof, forcing him to crawl under the kitchen table to take shelter. This is not the man born with a silver spoon in his mouth and groomed for the presidency from childhood. This is the man who was born to a lawyer and a governor who taught him discipline, values, and respect for the people by being one of the people. This is the man who, as president himself, shunned the luxuries and the privileges of high office, and like others before him, and even those after him, he slept not in the palatial grandeur of the Malacanang, but in Spartan quarters of his bodyguard's hut. His diet consisted not of prime cuts of imported Australian beef, but of dried fish and boiled rice.
Yes.
A man of simple indulgences, his pleasures were to be found not on the cocktail party circuit of Forbes Park, but on coastal roads where he roamed and cruised on his motorcycle, not looking for people to kill Mr. Prosecutor, but almost killing himself because of his love for speed. This is the man who paid and paved his way through law school, passing his bar exam in 1972, more or less on the same day as Marcos Sr.'s tanks were grinding and rolling their way through the streets after the declaration of martial law. And it was on
si Marcos, no?
that Rodrigo Duterte was exposed to the tyranny of oppression and the abuse of power by the elite. And he took a decision. On that day, he chose to devote himself to a life of selfless public service. Professor at the local police academy and as a public prosecutor in Davao, Rodrigo Duterte developed a lifelong passion, some would say an enduring obsession, for law and order, something for which he unapologetically enforced throughout his time as mayor of Davao City. Not, as the prosecution say, through sowing murder, mayhem, but through winning the love, respect, and admiration of his fellow citizens.
Yes.
The very same citizens who continue to re-elect him time after time, term after term, on no less than 7 occasions over more than 2 decades. And throughout his 20 or so years tenure as the mayor of Davao, Rodrigo Duterte and his family transformed that city from an outpost of communist insurgency and criminal violence into what is now one of the safest cities, not just in the Philippines, but in the entire world. This was indeed the so-called Davao model, which the prosecution wants to persuade you was code for unbridled criminal violence. And this was the type of leader that the Filipino nation wanted in 2016. So, Rodrigo Duterte was elected into power, not in spite of, but specifically because of his firm and uncompromising commitment to upholding law and order. And after his election as president, Rodrigo Duterte remained a man of the people, without seeking to patronize the people. Gung-ho in his ways, and with a belligerent tone, he spoke the tough tongue of the street, not the dissembling discourse of international diplomacy. He said what the people wanted to hear, but he said it in a way that offended sensibilities of world leaders unaccustomed to hearing it, one in particular, and that was what set him on the slippery slope to a prison cell in The Hague. And let me tell you how it works. It starts with the media, controlled by the powerful and the politically influential. With a sensational headline and a twisted editorial slant, the moguls sell their papers while promoting the partisan agenda of their backers in power. They highlight the salacious content while ignoring the true context, because that is what captivates the reader. And so it was with Rodrigo Duterte, whose speeches were fertile fodder for his enemies and detractors. A man whose hyperbole, bluster and rhetoric, once published, became a natural target for privately funded NGOs and human rights activists, a loose collective more commonly known as civil society. These people descended upon the Philippines to advance an agenda even more lacking in objectivity than that of the media. And heavily funded by tycoons with even grander designs, they print their glossy reports, replete with iconic photographic images of grieving families and dead bodies in rain-swept, nighttime crime scenes, all dramatically illuminated with the fluorescent glow of neon. Images carefully crafted to shock the conscience and to sway the emotions, and, I may say, to be used by the prosecutor when they don't even relate to the charges. And they gave their slick reports bold titles, lifted straight out of a James Bond movie, such as License to Kill, One Shot to the Head, You Can Die Anytime, or simply, They Just Kill. The photographers are feted and their shots exhibited as art all over the world, and the brave journalists who act as their sources awards and Nobel Prizes. And slowly but surely, their narrative becomes the sacred, unchallengeable, and unshakable truth. And so the pressure builds up, and the academics who haunt the corridors of the progressive left floor faculties far away in the United States tweet their research and publish their articles pontificating about crimes against humanity, systematic attacks.
Komento ako muna. Sorry. Wala nga. Narinig ko yan yung mga sikat na mga movies, yung mga criminal, So, anyway, natuwa lang ako doon sa sinasabi ni Attorney Kaufman, na masyado nilang talagang dinadaan nila sa mga movies, parang inihambing si Tatay Digong doon sa mga, sino ba, nakakalimutan ko yung mga movies na yun. Ulitin nga natin.
And they point
ulit.
say to be used by the prosecutor when they don't even relate to the charges. And they gave their slick reports bold titles, lifted straight out of a James Bond movie.
Yan, bold titles.
Such as License to Kill.
License to Kill.
One Shot to the Head.
One Stop to the Head.
You Can Die.
You Can Die.
Or simply, They Just Kill.
Tuwa lang ako. Kasi,
shots exhibited as art.
Teka lang, wala kasi kung computer na maayos-ayos. So, yun nga sinasabi. Kasi yung prosecutor, inulit lang ni Attorney Kaufman na bakit kinahambing nyo dito sa mga sikat na mga criminal, yung mga movies, O, tuloy natin, tuloy. Teka.
And the brave journalists say to be used by the prosecutor when they don't even relate to the charges. And they gave their slick reports bold titles, lifted straight out of a James Bond movie, such as License to Kill.
Okay.
One Shot to the Head. You Can Die Anytime. Or simply, They Just Kill. The photographers are feted and their shots exhibited as art all over the world. And the brave journalists who act as their sources win awards and Nobel Prizes. And slowly but surely, their narrative becomes the sacred, unchallengeable, and unshakable truth. And so the pressure builds up, and the academics who haunt the corridors of the progressive left floor faculties far away in the United States tweet their research and publish their articles pontificating about crimes against humanity, systematic attacks against the civilian population, and they point their finger at one man alone, and bandy about slogans such as accountability and the prevention of impunity. They give their gratuitous advice on what should be done, sometimes academics who formerly worked alongside the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court. Communications and complaints are filed, and the rest, as they say, is history. In any event, we're not gathered here today to judge a man on the basis of his coarse attitude or his vulgar language. This court has convened a confirmation hearing to verify whether substantial grounds exist to believe that Rodrigo Duterte, the people's president, together with various so-called co-perpetrators, over the years of his governance, devised a criminal policy of wholesale and wanton murder. And since we are in a court of law, it is worth stressing, although I should not have to, cases are decided on the basis of evidence, not supposition, not rumor, not spicy gossip, and certainly not on the basis of typical rhetoric and bluster. Because at the end of the day, were it not for those belligerent and controversial speeches, there would have been no impetus to bring the people's president to The Hague. And when the prosecution's evidence is examined, I would ask you to keep an open mind and to question not just whether that evidence has been selectively presented, but whether there exists evidence which the prosecution has failed to produce. And I say this with justifiable cause, particularly with respect to the Duterte rhetoric. As we will prove during the substantive part of our submissions, the notorious speeches on which the prosecution relies have been cherry-picked to suit its narrative, while ignoring the many other speeches when the former president tempered his bombastic language by clear reference to the principle of lawful self-defense. We, the defense, have read as many of these speeches as we can find. In fact, in our poky little office on the top floor of the furthest building away in this complex, we have a counter which ticks and ticks. And whenever we come across a speech which contradicts the prosecution's murder theory by reference to self-defense, we give a cheer. And the counter goes up once more, and we celebrate one more nail in the coffin of the prosecution's case theory. As the statistics stand as of today, in contrast to the 20 speeches on which the prosecution relies to prove incitement to kill, we have found 35 more which say the complete opposite. Let me give you two examples from the very speeches that the deputy prosecutor himself cited today. Let's refer first of all to the famous Pietà speech, which the deputy prosecutor referred to. So, this is what the deputy prosecutor said. Those of you who are still sober, those who haven't tried illegal drugs, if you don't want to die or get hurt, don't rely on the priests, including human rights advocates. They won't be able to prevent deaths, and so it goes on. But if we look further on in the very same speech, something which maybe the deputy prosecutor didn't do.
Dami Teka lang walang ganyanan. Tuloy.
This is what he had to say. To our police officers and other officials, do your job, and you will have the unwavering support of the office of the president. I will be with you all the way. Abuse your authority, and there will be hell to pay. For you will have become worse than criminality itself. Well, there you are. You have it straight in your face. Pexo, exonerating evidence within what is claimed to be the prosecution in criminal figures. I won't take up my time by showing you the second speech, but there is one. If I have time at the end, I will show it to you. So if you add to that another 10 speeches out of the 20 speeches on which the prosecution rely in its document containing the charges, after all, we are in a court of law and we rely on evidence. And what is the evidence that's produced of these speeches? 20 of them. 10 of them, I submit, and we will show this in the substantive part of our submissions, contain exonerating evidence which support the defense case theory. In other words, if you add the 10, which we've identified in the prosecution's 20, to our total of 35, we come to 45 speeches versus 10, which we say support the use of force only in self-defense. That is 350% more speeches in favor of our defense and 354% more reasons not to confirm the charges. And you can bet your bottom dollar that at the end of today's proceedings, either the victim's self-styled legal assistant to ICC counsel or a prosecution intern will be tasked with scouring the web looking for the means to prove Kaufman wrong. And I will declare it, and I'll declare it loudly and clearly, as if the prosecution didn't know it already. It's not enough to state that since the former president made those extremely inflammatory statements and deaths occurred, that he must, as a matter of course, be criminally responsible for those fatalities. At this stage of the proceedings, the prosecution needs to show substantial grounds to believe that the former president actually desired and foresaw that people would be killed as a result of his incendiary language. For the prosecution to assert that Rodrigo Duterte hoped for deaths to occur or was recklessly indifferent as to whether deaths would occur, which he was not, that's insufficient. So once more for the record, Rodrigo Duterte's language was aimed not at suspected drug pushers as the prosecution would have it, but directly at those poisoning society with their substances, and not, I stress, with lethal intent. His rhetoric was calculated to arouse fear and obedience, to instill fear in their hearts, and to inculcate a respect for the law in their minds. Nothing more, nothing less. That was his intent, and it was not criminal. And as many of these drug pushers demanded to enter prison, I remember seeing the images on the television, lining up to surrender and to enter prison. Now, I challenged my colleagues opposite to prove otherwise, because as we all know, in a criminal process, the burden of proof is on the prosecution. They brought this case and they need to prove it.
Correct.
Rodrigo Duterte need not convince the world of anything, and that is to his fortunate advantage given his current medical condition.
Correct.
And he stands behind his legacy resolutely, and he maintains his innocence absolutely. Now, I turn to the general fairness and objectivity of the investigation, which, as we all know, is meant to be an impartial evidence-gathering exercise. As an ex-prosecutor myself, I'm used to investigating agencies, pursuing all reasonable lines of inquiry, assimilating all testimonies, and digesting all documentation and forensic evidence, recommending who to target for prosecution, but not so with this prosecution. When we, the defense, study the course of the investigation in this case, one thing is plain as a pikestaff. The chief prosecutor of this court, Mr. Karim Khan, not only failed miserably to carry out his duties under the Rome Statute, requiring him to examine exonerating circumstances as well as incriminating, but he single-handedly contaminated it, so we alleged, by pursuing a one-track crusade with a view to a predetermined objective. Let me explain. Although the ICC officially authorized the next investigation into the so-called Philippine situation in late 2021, it was deferred a few months later back to the Philippines for the official investigation to resume only in late 2023. But the real meat of the investigation into count one, relating to the activities of that fictitious construct, the Davao Death Squad, had effectively started way before then, with the sole objective of nailing Rodrigo Duterte. Indeed, all the way back in 2018, during its so-called preliminary examination, the prosecution had an individual who will be referred to as P1 handed to them on a silver platter. This P1 had been interviewed at an earlier date by none other than Chief Prosecutor Karim Khan.
Nawala. Ba't gano'n? Nawala. Teka. Nawala. So anyway. Ba't gano'n? Short siya, ano?
Tired of dirty
Short.
Need the portable.
Short. Anong nangyari dito? Nabitin ako ah. Hanapin ko yun oh. Ang ganda nung nung interview niya
The portable swimming pool jet
Ika.
vacuum cleaner, a game changer for
Wala senior team. Kaya pala ABS-CBN pala Sablay
Nakatutok ang ikatlong sesyon ng pre-trial chamber sa paglalatag ng prosecution ng tinatawag na submissions on the merits of the case. Pakinggan natin ito.
He kept that promise and he murdered hundreds through so-called liquidation squads, death squads. These liquidation squads became notoriously known colloquially as the Davao Death Squad, or DDS. After years, 2 decades of murdering alleged criminals as mayor of Davao, it became clear to him that this political strategy could be leveraged for higher office and for more power, the presidency. And that is exactly what he did. During his campaign to be president, Mr. Duterte expressly promised many times that he would kill criminals if elected. He claimed that Davao was Exhibit A in why he should be elected. And he promised, he pledged, that if he won, he would expand the killings nationwide. He won, and that is what he did. And as you will hear tomorrow from Mr. Jeremy and Ms. Croft, the murders skyrocketed in the months immediately after Mr. Duterte became president in June 2016. And that was no coincidence. That was him fulfilling his campaign pledge. As president, he murdered thousands using the same, many of the same co-perpetrators and methods from his time as mayor of Davao. So he moved the method to manipulate to expand it, the crimes. The victims in this case ranged from powerful individuals to predominantly the poorest citizens of the Philippines. Now, why were the poor selected and victimized? Well, it was often because they were the most vulnerable. And they didn't have the families and the power to make police reports, and they were the most afraid. Mr. Duterte boasted about the killings that resulted in thousands of deaths at his order. And not once, at any time, has he shown any remorse. He promised, also, you will hear, to take responsibility, personal responsibility, for the killings, if need be. Well, that time has come. We are confident, if your honors confirm the charges in this case, that we will prevail and Mr. Duterte will be convicted at trial. To talk a little bit about what my friend, one of the things he said during his 30 minutes. In our presentation today, you will hear Mr. Duterte, in his own words, calling for killings, bragging about killings, and as I said, vowing to take responsibility for those killings if necessary. And the defense, I have in my outline, may claim, but they already have, the defense claimed that this is hyperbole, bluster, exaggeration, part of his blunt or direct strongman political speech, which had brought him political success in Davao and then nationwide. And the defense will also point your honors to many instances where Mr. Duterte and his allies tried to build a veneer, kind of fig leaf of plausible deniability by sprinkling in references to the effect that the police should only shoot to kill in self-defense. Those references to self-defense appear throughout Mr. Duterte's speeches. They're all over the place. We don't run away from that. We don't shy away from that. That's part of our theory. So the defense will say, and again, they already have, that we've cherry-picked the statements we show you, but we have not. We acknowledge these many references to self-defense in Mr. Duterte's speeches. But the evidence which is in our pre-confirmation brief, and some of which will lead today, overwhelmingly shows that those references to self-defense and following the law and to due process are nothing but nonsense. Keep in mind, as mayor, he created a death squad. A leader who creates, leads, arms, and funds a death squad
Nasa ebidensya nyo.
is not interested in due
Ano kayo
process
makipakita ng
or
ebidensya?
following the law.
Puro video.
Those empty utterances
Anyway.
were simply Mr. Duterte, who's chosen not to be here today. Those were simply him acting as the former prosecutor, trying to build in some semblance of a defense, preparing for the day, should it ever come, as it now has, that he would be held to account. It was to give his lawyers something to say. But look at it over here. Oh, I said don't shoot, except in self-defense. The reality is that Mr. Duterte's message was clear, and it was understood by the perpetrators, and it was followed. That message was, commit murder at my direction, and I will protect you, I will pay you, I will promote you. And that's what happened. And I'll say this as well, Your Honors. For purposes of this confirmation hearing, disregard every speech ever made by Mr. Duterte. Throw them all out. There is still ample evidence of substantial grounds based on the other evidence which we have put on our list of evidence.
Ang dami ng gastos.
Wala namang ebidensya. Puro video lang eh.
Investigators couldn't get even one of his criminal.
Eto pakikitaan ko yun, no. So anyway, interview ni Attorney Kaufman, no? Yung
with respect to any incidents.
yan.
And we hope
Interview ni Attorney Kaufman.
Your Honors, and I thank Mr. Tuyan for his intervention.
Hindi yan. Nasaan yung interview niya, no?
We will ask you, Your Honors, and I thank
Teka, ba't ganito? Nasaan yung interview? Hindi ko yata na-save, Hindi ko yata na-save yung interview, no?
The Duterte family just issued
Yan na.
a statement early this morning, and
Ito na.
there are two things in that statement. One is
Attorney
that
Kaufman,
there are
interview.
no visitations allowed from the family. Do we know this? For if this is correct, and then is this normal court practice? And if so, why is it so?
Yes, it's absolutely normal court practice. In the week before the confirmation proceedings, in order to prepare the suspect, in this case our client, Mr. Duterte, for the confirmation process, they cut off all contact with the family so that there's no interference. They have their logistics, they have their administrative things that they have to do. They have to prepare him for the hearing. So this decision was taken a month ago. Having said that, as you know, Mr. Duterte gave a waiver. As a result of that, he won't be attending the confirmation hearing.
All right. And then the second part of that statement is that there are 6 Filipino lawyers who are coming or are already here in order to make sure that he has the proper or enough Filipino representation, Filipino lawyer representation. So I'm just wondering how they will be interacting with you. In what way are they supposed to help you, if ever?
Well, this wasn't a last-minute decision on the part of the family. Let me say that Attorney Martin Del Gra, Attorney Salvador Mediadea have been working with us all along. We've been taking advice from Attorney Del Gra, who has been the former president's lawyer for many years. Same for Salvador Mediadea. Bingbong, who has been a long-time friend of the former president. So they've come to support, to explain the proceedings to the Filipino nation, to the public, through unfiltered and unbiased stance. I hope they will hear the truth of what's going on from these lawyers. I'm sure they will. And I'm very privileged to have them here in The Hague supporting us, especially Attorney Salvador Panelo, who's quite an icon, someone who I quite admire and have followed over the years.
All right, so they will be just watching from the gallery.
Well, yes,
like
because unfortunately they've arrived at the last minute, so it won't be possible to get them passes so they can actually sit inside the court well. But anyway, they will be here and we're glad to have them here.
How significant is that for you to have that kind of support from Filipino counsel?
Of course, it's very significant and it's very important. And we have a message to get out, and we have a message to put out to the Filipino nation. And we hope that the ongoing commentary on television, on media, wherever it may be, will support us.
Have you made a recent visit to the former president inside the detention? And if so, does he have any concerns or last-minute instructions perhaps about this confirmation of charges? How is he doing?
Well, last-minute instructions, if you remember, we've litigated heavily his cognitive state. He's not, as I said, capable of delivering effective instructions to counsel. We wish to litigate that properly. We've been blocked all the way. We've also had our request to have a full-blown hearing, evidential hearing, where we can cross-examine the medical experts who testified. Didn't really testify. They wrote a report for the court. We disagree with those findings. We find those findings internally contradicting. But that's all water under the bridge now. We're at the stage of the confirmation process. And since we're challenging the sufficiency of the prosecution evidence, there really isn't any need to take instructions from our client if he were able to give instructions to us. So no, he's not fully involved to that extent in the process, but we go and visit him regularly. We've been to see him practically every day this week. We're not entitled to visits on a Friday, and we're not entitled to visits on the weekend. But on Monday to Thursday, we were there with him. I was there twice this week. I saw him on Thursday. I prepared him for the eventuality that the judges might reject his request for a waiver. He understood that, and as I said, for the rest of the time we've been busy working, preparing for the confirmation process, which starts tomorrow.
Okay, and he does understand like the process of how this is, significant as to he will have a trial or not.
Yes, he understands that because we've repeated it so many times that he can't possibly forget it now. And don't forget also, he understands the nature of the process because he himself was a former prosecutor. His long-term memory, his memories of childhood, his memories of his early career and presidency, early presidency, I would say, are intact. His short-term memory, however, is completely gone. It's very sad. It's very sad that the judges weren't even prepared to litigate that matter properly.
How challenging is that for you as the legal counsel? I mean, when you speak with him...
Well, it's challenging, I must say. And we repeat important issues many times. Sometimes we tell him stuff, he's forgotten it the following day. So we have to repeat. And as I say, even with the waiver itself, he dictated to us a waiver, which Senator Leila de Lima thinks is all a crock. Well, I'll reserve my views on Senator Leila de Lima, who's been pursuing the former president for year after year. But in any event, he'd forgotten what he dictated to us. They were his own words. We had to remind him, and once he reminded him, he agreed and he signed off on that waiver.
How long did it take for you to finally, come up with that letter?
Well, as I said, it doesn't take too much to say I don't recognize the jurisdiction of the court, and he doesn't. And let me say one thing. This matter of recognition and recognizing the jurisdictional or the ability of the court to exercise its jurisdiction over a Filipino national was something which he said right at the very beginning when he was arrested on the plane coming back from Hong Kong. I remember his words very well. He said, "I'm a Filipino citizen. What ICC?" And that's what he's been asking for all along. If he's done something wrong, let him be tried in front of his own people, not in front of a foreign jurisdiction, when the Philippines is no longer a party to the ICC.
Okay, so tell us about the confirmation of charges hearing. It seems unique to the ICC, am I correct?
Yes, it's a unique creature, and it's unique to the can I put it, to the international criminal tribunals, if I can put it that way. If you compare it to the common law system, maybe in the United Kingdom, it's more or less akin to a grandiose committal proceeding where the court essentially examines the sufficiency of evidence to determine whether or not it's justifiable and economically viable to have a trial. Of course, that takes a long time. It involves considerable expense, bringing witnesses from all over the world. And it wouldn't be worth that unless there was a certain level of evidence that had already been satisfied. So let me explain the three standards of proof at the International Criminal Court. You have the first basic standard of proof, which is reasonable grounds to believe that someone has committed a crime. And that standard, the prosecution succeeded in convincing the judges existed. And that was the basis for issuing the arrest warrant against the former president. Obviously, we all know that at the end of a criminal trial, you have to satisfy, if you're the prosecution, the standard of proof, which is called beyond reasonable doubt. And that is a very high standard of proof. Confirmation, it's somewhere in between. It's a standard which is called substantial grounds to believe. Namely, are there substantial grounds to believe that the former president committed the crimes that the prosecution alleges that he committed? So that's the role of the prosecution. The defense doesn't have to do anything with respect to proving things. It doesn't have to prove Mr. Duterte's innocence. All it has to do is show that substantial grounds to believe that he committed a crime don't exist. And we can do that on the basis of the evidence that we've examined. Now, I'm not going to litigate it now because I have to make all my arguments in court. But over the next week, we will present those arguments.
Oh, okay. So not to prove his innocence, but to counter the evidence that will be provided by the prosecution.
Yeah,
you have been
that's
given
right.
the most time in the presentation. How do you plan to?
Well, the most time in the presentation is because I asked for the most time in the presentation. The prosecution believed that they only need three hours. Now, I don't want you to believe that because I said we don't have to prove the former president's innocence, that I'm accepting in some way, God forbid, that he's not innocent. I'm far from it. He is innocent, and I 100% believe, because the evidence that has been brought against him doesn't make out the prosecution case against him, and I believe that when he made those speeches, he didn't make them with criminal intent. So this is what the process is going to be all about. And our job, as I said, is to chip away at the prosecution evidence and try and convince the judges that they shouldn't let this case go to trial, when all the while we know that there is still the issue of jurisdiction pending before the appeals chamber. This is unique, I must say this, and this is something that is worth stressing. We've been pushed into a confirmation process when one of the most fundamental issues in this case is still undecided, and that's the issue of jurisdiction. I don't know why the judges took that decision, but far be it from me to organize the diary of the learned judges.
This is the court crisis that we're talking about.
Well, you could look at it that way. There will be some people who will say that the reason why we're going so quickly to confirmation is because the courts are empty at the moment, by and large. They've got nothing to show, especially when more than, I would say, a month or two ago, there was this big Assembly of State Parties conference when the budget for this year was approved. They've been given a lot of money. And what have they got to show for it? Empty courtrooms. So they're hoping for a trial, and that trial will be, as they hope, President Rodrigo Duterte. And they've just arrested a Libyan alleged slave trafficker, modern-day slave trafficker, and they're bringing him as well to confirmation in the month of May. But apart from that, there is nothing in first instance.
Are you telling me that they just needed to show that they're doing something?
I'm not making that allegation. I did stress that there are people who will argue that. The detractors, and we all know who those detractors are, not state parties, but presidents and prime ministers of countries who are not state parties to the Rome Statute.
Right, but this is, the case is really quite unique because we were the first to, well, we're not the first to withdraw from the ICC, but we have such a different situation, right?
Well, this is the first, how can I put it? This is the first big country outside Africa. So this is one of the reasons why they're keen to pursue and proceed with this case, to show that the International Criminal Court isn't, in fact, the International African Court, which is what some of the detractors in Kenya and elsewhere argued.
Okay, so what do we expect when the proceedings for this confirmation wraps up after Friday? What are you expecting?
Well, obviously, I would hope that the charges won't be confirmed and we can send the former president back home. But if the prosecution managed to convince the judges that there are substantial grounds to believe that the crimes were committed, or some of the crimes were committed at any rate, then the case will be set down at a future date for trial.
All right, but they said that the appeal is not automatic, right? But of course,
appeal of what? Sorry.
The appeal of any decision from the confirmation.
No, the confirmation is not automatic. They have to seek leave to appeal.
Okay, but after that, of course, you are waiting for the decision on the appeal on jurisdiction.
Yes, that's true. We're waiting for that big decision, and as I said, we're convinced that we have the right arguments there. I really can't see how arguments on that cannot be accepted. Notably, the decision of the pre-trial chamber, something which a lot of people have missed, is that this 127, Article 110, which I talked about, is lex specialis, a special law, unique law. This is what the pre-trial chamber found. The prosecution have rejected that. So we're both in agreement to a certain degree that the pre-trial chamber got it wrong. However, the prosecution are reverting to the original arguments and saying that there is jurisdiction. So we argue that there is no ability to exercise jurisdiction, and it will be up to the appeals chamber to decide. Now, the appeals chamber doesn't normally move very quickly. They like to take their time. I don't know the reasons why it's taking so long. I would have thought that the decision would have been issued before the confirmation proceedings, but it hasn't, and doesn't look likely that it will be issued tomorrow morning, although anything's possible. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Is it possible to see a scenario where charges are confirmed and then they decide there's no jurisdiction? Is that possible at any point?
Technically speaking, yes, of course it's possible.
And even if, for example, it was confirmed, we go to trial and then they issue a...
No, I don't think that we would get to trial before they'd issue the decision. It doesn't take that long. But then don't forget, the pre-trial chamber essentially gave the appeals chamber a deadline. They told them they rejected the fitness request that we'd made, and they set their case confirmation within 3 weeks, when we'd only just finished on the very same day, or a day before, the litigation on jurisdiction. If you remember, the prosecution asked to come back once more after we'd filed our reply and to make arguments, additional arguments to counter one of the submissions that we made. We objected, and the appeals chamber gave them the opportunity to make other submissions. Fair enough. But as I said, the appeals chamber were given a deadline of essentially 3 weeks to take a decision if they wanted to render their judgment before the commencement of the confirmation of charges hearing.
Okay. Now, in the final session, you do have that hearing also on detention, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, but the court says, the former president has to file a separate waiver for that. Is he attending or what?
We will file a separate waiver for that, unless, of course, the appeals chamber issues its decision in the interim on interim release. Don't forget that we have already had the first review of the former president's detention. We submitted a medical report which was specifically tailored to address the risk factors under Article 58 of the Rome Statute. If you recall, that's the risk of flight, the risk of interfering with witnesses, and the risk of continued commission of crime. We said that somebody of Mr. Duterte's age and physical and mental condition was not able to satisfy those risk factors, and therefore he should be released. We supplied medical evidence to support that. The court ignored that medical evidence, so we're appealing the decision of theirs not to take into account the medical evidence that we supplied specifically for the first review on detention. The appeals chamber have to render their decision. If they don't render their decision before then, I'll basically say to the court that we're not going to oppose continued detention until we do have a judgment from the appeals chamber.
Right, so there is a possibility you won't attend that as well.
It gets a bit more difficult then, because the statute requires for the early review for a person to be present in court. It's a mandatory requirement. However, we will be considering our options nearer the date.
Which means like a video link or something.
Well, let me put it this way. I'm not telling you exactly what we're considering at the moment.
Right.
However, I have severe reservations regarding the use of the video link, and I'll tell you why. When he was first brought before the court, he was jet-lagged. He'd been released from hospital. He was put in front of a television camera and told that he was before a court. He could see that he looked, quite frankly, exhausted, half asleep. And in my opinion, it was sheer humiliation. They put him in a suit which wasn't even his own, a blue suit, tasteless suit. We've obviously had a barong acquired for him should he decide that he wants to come to court. And of course, it's his own decision. And whatever I'm instructed to do, I will do. And I will do to the best of my ability. But I have severe reservations about letting him appear in front of a video camera.
So the barong is still there?
We have a barong.
All right. And you said it's mandatory, so different regulations and rules for a detention period.
Well, let's cross that bridge when we come to it, okay? I'm not going to litigate the matter now.
But just to be clear, interim release is still on the table.
Well,
at this point,
I would hope so, because it's in front of the appeals chamber, and the appeals chamber still have to rule on that matter. They can say, okay, fine, you're wrong, Mr. Kaufman. The judges are absolutely right. They didn't have to take into account your specifically crafted, tailored medical evidence which addresses those risk factors.
Okay.
Or the appeals chamber could say, Mr. Kaufman, you've got a point here.
Right.
Let's send it back to the appeals. Let's send it back to the pre-trial chamber so that they consider this report.
It's your appeal to the decision on the review, the first review.
The first review, as I said,
it's getting
maintained. Oh, it's getting confusing for me as well. But I have to remember all of this stuff because that's my job.
Yes.
Okay, but in any event, after the first detention review, we appealed. And we appealed against the maintenance of detention. We asked for him to be released once again because we had a special medical report prepared by experts, a neurologist and a neuropsychologist, which addressed those risk factors that I talked about. The judges felt that they didn't need to take that into account. We believe that they erred, made a mistake, and so we appealed it, and we're still awaiting that decision. There's no point asking for Mr. Duterte to be released by the same pre-trial chamber when we're still waiting for an appeals decision on that.
But how would you, I mean, the court says it is because they wanted to ensure impartiality.
Well, you're mixing things up now, because the ensuring impartiality refers to the fitness proceedings. This is something else. We're talking about fitness proceedings, whether or not he's capable of giving effective instructions, whether he understands the nature of the process. Okay? So they appointed their independent expert panel. After disqualifying two of the members of this panel, two neuropsychologists, one of whom was disqualified from our own medical association, and the other one a rabid social media troll. After we convinced the judges to disqualify those two neuropsychologists, they appointed someone who is pretty respectable. But having said that, his report, the report of a neurologist and the report of a forensic psychiatrist, God knows why he was instructed, but anyway, they all contradicted each other, and we asked for a hearing in order to be able to cross-examine the medical experts, something which happens in practically every case involving fitness to stand trial that I've come across in the 36 years of my practice. And I tell you, I've been practicing as a prosecutor and as defense counsel, and I've never come across a situation where medical evidence is disputed between the parties and the courts don't let the parties cross-examine